Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar, 10 things you may be asking about SEO. And by the time we're done, it may be 15 or 20 things you're asking about SEO. My name is James. I'm General Sales Manager with Lunar Logic, and I'm pleased to be joined by Zach Bond, our lead analyst. And I can really appreciate the value of analytics since I've worked with Zach, and that's really been easily the most important part of a successful SEO campaign. And I don't want to get too far into it and steal any of his thunder, so I'm just going to jump right in. Zach, take it away.
Hi everybody, my name is Zach Bond. I'm the lead analyst here at Lunar Logic, and I'm going to talk a little bit about SEO. Thanks for the introduction, James, and like you said, we're just going to jump right into it. So we're going to start talking about content. You have undoubtedly heard the phrase content is king, and when everybody talks about your presence on the web, they seem to never stop talking about great content, why you need it, you always need to be promoting it, but what does great actually mean in this context? So the nice thing about SEO, especially recently, is that search engines have gotten so much better at understanding, not just the content of a piece, whether it be text or video or an image, but actually really understanding the semantic value, the deep underlying themes that piece of content is about. You can now feel free to write a long-form expansive piece on a particular subject and feel safe in the notion that Google and other search engines are going to categorize that in the correct way and show it for relevant search requests. So when we say what is great content, we're talking about when it's written content, when it's text, it is well written, it's substantive. We're not talking about bite-sized article-lets. You can feel free to write, we often recommend 800, 1200 words for a starting point for blog entries and other written content. It includes relevant words and phrases naturally, so this is not, keywords still important, but we don't really have the days anymore where we say, okay, you absolutely have to have the keyword that you're going for in the URL and the title and 3 different times in the opening paragraph. You want to use those keywords naturally and where they would fall and use other synonyms for them as you would in normal speech, and search engines are going to pick that up. Great content is fresh. It's recent. It's been updated recently. It addresses current topics that people are searching for. And finally, it answers a question. Search engines have also gotten much better at understanding people's natural language questions. People have gotten comfortable enough with search engines that they just ask it a question, complete with question marks, for advice on how to do almost anything. And we're seeing Google and other search engines starting to feature particular answers to questions that pulls from content. These are called featured snippets. You may have seen this. You've found the answer to your question and that's featured right there, top of the Google search results. This is what's called a featured snippet. There are a few different ways to format your content so you have a better chance of getting featured this way, and it definitely leads to improved click-through rates and engagement when you show up that way in search. And we say all this about great content. Content's absolutely important, but it needs a platform on which to stand, and it needs paths of discovery that direct people to it. So that's the other part of SEO. If you already have your awesome content, that's great. You're 85% of the way there. But the other 15% is a lot of fiddly stuff. So we'll get into that and hopefully demystify some of it. So when I talk about content, I'm not just talking about text, I'm also talking about images and video, and what you're going to do with that content and how you're going to position it in search has to do a lot with your goals as a business and your strategy for that content. So depending on what you want to do with video, we might recommend that you host it entirely on YouTube or on Vimeo, or that you embed it in your website, and that you use these particular paths to draw people to it. We would always recommend that video content be properly tagged and have great headlines and descriptions and things like closed captioning that can help it appear in search. So there are some basic optimization things that one should always do for video and images, but some of the broader stuff and how it fits into your SEO strategy is always going to be determined by exactly what you want to do. When we talk about SEO, we're going to sort of divide it into two broad categories, and we call these on-page SEO factors and off-page SEO factors. On-page SEO factors are stuff that you have direct control over on your website, things like architecture, content, HTML tags, things like that, and that's what we'll discuss first. And then we'll talk a little bit about the off-page factors, which include the number of other links to your website, how long it's been around, trustworthiness, local factors, things like that. Architecture. So this is the first, most basic piece of on-page SEO. And architecture basically really just means how your website is laid out. So if you think of your website as a collection of individual pages that are connected by links, is that easy to visualize or draw out in your mind? If you're drawing, say, your website is a flow chart, does it look like a big crazy tangle of wires, or does it look like something that logically proceeds from one step to the next? This matters because of the way that search engines use their bots to crawl website content. If Googlebot comes in to map your site, it does that by jumping between links on your pages and moving through your navigation. And if that's confusing or unintuitive to do, it may have a problem doing that, and that can affect how many of your pages are indexed and can negatively impact SEO. Another thing that really helps with this is a sitemap file. These are commonly XML documents, but they can also be human readable or HTML. XML is just a file type that computer programs can read, and this is really just what it sounds like. It's a map that you can point a search engine at and say, hey, here's where every single thing on my website lives and all of its addresses. If you're serving content that's the same on one page as another page, you're going to want to make sure that the search engine knows which one it should be indexing, which one's the most important one. We call that canonical, and there's a tag that you can put on that page that says, okay, you can index these other pages and this content lives somewhere else as well, but this is the real, the first one, the most important one, and that will help keep you from getting dinged for having duplicate content, because Google and other search engines really reward fresh, original content. They don't want to see the same stuff popping up on your website or on other websites. Two other things about architecture is the site responsive and mobile friendly. So responsive means that the site automatically resizes its menu and its features and content to whatever screen size is being viewed on. So it means it looks great on a desktop, and if you shrink it down to phone size, it looks great and it's still functional too. It's the same site. We're not talking about having one site for mobile and one site for desktop. Those days are done. And mobile friendly means that it works well on mobile. So when we size everything down, the text is still readable. If I try to tap a button, I'm not hunting and pecking and tapping the wrong thing, and a few other factors. And then the final piece of architecture is, of course, load time. Nobody wants to sit there waiting for websites or images to load, so there's a bunch of technical factors that go into where you put the code on your page or how big your images are that affects when they load. And site load time, really in the last 18 months has started becoming a really, really important factor for SEO. HTML. This is another part of site architecture and on-page SEO. When we talk about HTML in terms of SEO, we're mainly talking about these HTML tags that live on pages that tell search engines certain things about the content. You may have heard about title tags or meta description tags. What these are little pieces of code that text lives in them, and it tells the search engine, okay, this is the title of this page, this is what this page is about, and the description tag tells the search engine that little snippet of text to serve in the search results. So if you perform a search, you see all the results, the titles are right there, and then underneath it you might see 150 characters or so that give a brief description of the page. Well, you can set what that says with the description tag, and if you do it well, you'll increase the chances that somebody is going to recognize that content's what they actually need, and they'll click through to the page. If you don't set it, or your page is set up the wrong way, some random stuff might show there. A lot of times you see people's navigation menus showing up in there, and just other text they might not want, or some code from the page, and that kind of makes your site look a little less trustworthy and well set up, and people might be less likely to click on it. The other thing that's important for on-page SEO are whether or not page headers are used consistently. You can kind of think about these as the chapters in a book. You know, you want them to proceed from 1 to 2 to 3. Your header at the top of the page can be the same as your title, and you're always going to want to have H2 and H3 tags in descending order from the H1. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, or what header tags are, if you just think about, if you go into any Word document and you're thinking about how to organize your page, you put the title at the top, and you have different formatting options for, you know, how to break up the text. So usually they're broken up in header 1, header 2, header 3, and they kind of look like they're in descending nested order of importance. So that's all those are, and search engines are increasingly using those to kind of figure out what the broader subject matter of pages are. And then finally, image, alt, and title tags. Now, this is something that is criminally overlooked by the vast majority of websites on the internet, and it's someplace that you can really take advantage of for SEO. One thing that search engines are not the best at right now is looking at an image and figuring out what it's about. So they rely on these text tags that are attached to the image that are just literal descriptions of what the image is. And almost nobody writes these correctly. And image search, I mean, there are billions and billions of searches in Google image search every day. And if you want your product or service to be showing up when people are searching for images of it, then you need to have your alt and title tags well written, and you can get a lot of traffic that way. So now we're going to talk a little bit about off-page factors. So this is stuff that doesn't live on your website. These are things like links and trustworthiness that are not in your direct control, but if you operate your website in, I guess, a trustworthy way, and I'll go into a little bit more about what that means, then and you are active at link building and getting links from other trustworthy sites to your website, then these factors will tend to work in your favor rather than against it. So the first factor is trust. Now, this is kind of a nebulous term that means a lot of different things. In SEO, generally when we talk about trust, we're kind of talking about a large collection of factors that go into telling a search engine whether or not a page is a good source of information, or whether or not it's kind of spammy or scammy. So one thing that most search engines have looked for since the dawn of search engines is the number of links and the authoritativeness of the links to a website that render it trustworthy. So one great example is Wikipedia. You do a search for just about any topic, and you're going to find Wikipedia usually in the top 3 organic results. And one of the reasons this is so is because so many other websites are linking to Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is a great source of information. So Google has taken that and seen, all right, there are 20,000 links to this page on philosophy in Wikipedia, so it must be a pretty good source if someone's looking for information about philosophy. I'm gonna serve it up in search results. So offsite links and shares make a huge difference in trust. What people do when they're on your website is a factor as well. There are some people who believe that having Google Analytics on your website allows Google to collect extra information about whether people are hitting your website and bouncing right off. That actually doesn't play a factor into SEO. Bounce rate does, but whether or not you have analytics on or off your site does not. We always recommend that you do, so you can see what that is. And when I talk about bounce rate, I mean people who are coming to your website and then not sticking around and doing anything else. They hit your page and then they leave. They either exit it, they follow a link to some other page, they go back to the search results. And in most cases, this can be indicative that they haven't found what they're searching for. But in other cases, particularly if you're running a website that mostly deals in one-off pieces of content, like say if you're BuzzFeed you may not worry that much about your bounce rate because people are your goal is to get people to come consume your content and then leave and share it. And then a final piece of trust is simply how long your website domain has been around and has been operating in the same way for that time. So if you've got a domain that you've been using since 1996 and you've always been the owner and it's always been attached to your business, then that's going to go a long way in terms of trust factors for SEO. So I talked a little bit about this in the last slide. Are the links that you're getting to your site from trusted, quality, or respected websites? See the Wikipedia thing again. And I'll go in a little bit more into what it means to have a link from a quality website. So if your website has a bunch of links from maybe some less trustworthy sites or some sites that are known to host ads or spam or malware, these are not going to be trusted, quality, or respected websites to get links from. If you are getting links from educational and government agencies, websites that end with things like .edu, .org, .gov, those tend to be more sought after, more quality links. Another factor in how well links are going to perform for you in terms of SEO is what's called the anchor text in those links. So when we talk about anchor text, I mean the actual words that are in the link itself. So when you see the link and it's got the blue text with the underline on it, all that stuff in the blue text and the underline is the anchor text. So if you're, Bob's Global Widgets and there's a link to your website, the anchor text could say that, or it could say, Bob's Local Widgets, purveyor of fine quality square, hexagonal, and spherical widgets, and that would be a more keyword-rich anchor text for your link. And then, of course, the final factor in links is just the sheer number of links coming from different domains to your website. And in general, the more the better. So increasingly, local factors play a much greater role in what shows up in search. You may be noticing that you get different search results at different times of the day, or if you're on a different device, say your laptop versus your phone for the same query, or if you're in a different place. That's because Google is now taking many, many other factors other than the search query into account when they serve search results. These factors include the physical location of where the searcher is, has been in their search history previously, and there isn't, obviously you have no control over where the searcher is or what they're searching for at any given moment. But if you are a business and you are attached to a physical location or associated with a particular physical location, you're not just an internet only or an e-commerce business, you're going to want to make sure that all those links are set up in the way that you can get the maximum exposure for local search. And one big piece right now is Google My Business. If you have a physical location and you have not claimed and verified your Google My Business listing, I'd strongly recommend that you go and put it at the top of your SEO checklist because right now that and the number of reviews that you have on Google and other sites are a major factor in local search. Social is a really big part of SEO right now, but it is something that takes considerable perseverance. And when I talk about that, so when I said before about links from other websites contributing to SEO, the same is true for social platforms. However, the rate of decay on the trustworthiness of the traffic that it sends to your site is much, much higher. So what I mean by that is if you say share, you have a great article, great piece of content, you go and you share it on Facebook and Twitter, this results in a few link backs to your site, somebody goes and shares it, there's a little bit of activity around it for a few hours or a day, and then it kind of dies. Those links are not going to just sit there on Facebook and continue to provide SEO value for your website simply because of the sheer volume of stuff and how easily manipulated social media can be. So if you are going to be promoting your content on social media, and we strongly suggest that you do, it has to be a concerted and continuous effort. So you have to be continually putting out fresh content and then serving it on social media and using social media to promote that content.
Good.
Oh, questions?
We do have them. I was, the title of the webinar is 10 things you may be asking about SEO. Now it's time to ask them. We have several questions coming in, and let's do this one first. So how do I find out whether or not my site is being effective in search?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So what a lot of people are tempted to do is simply Google themselves, and that can work, but with the advent of personalized search results and some of the local stuff that I talked about before, who you are and where you are in your previous search history strongly impact what Google is going to show you. So if you are the owner of your own website and you search for it, it's likely, and you're used to searching it and going there, it's likely that Google is going to show you that website, even for keyword terms that aren't necessarily related to your business. So just going out and performing a Google search in the wild is not the most reliable way to figure out where you're performing in search. Much better ways there's two free tools that you can use provided by Google. One is called, it used to be called Google Webmaster Tools, and now it's called Google Search Console, and you can go there, sign up, prove that you have a variety of ways, and it will give you keyword data for the last 90 days and where your site has shown up in search, how often people have clicked through, and it's a very valuable tool for actually assessing where you are in search. The other tool that we like is Google Analytics. This is a piece of tracking code that you slap onto every page of your website and gives you a lot more information about what people are doing on your website once they arrive, including information from people who arrive organically. So with these tools you can figure out both where you're appearing in search and then if the people who are coming in from search are doing what you want them to do on your website.
Okay, well here's an interesting question. My site already ranks #1 on Google for all the search terms I care about. Do I need to worry about SEO?
If that's the case, that's awesome. Good for you. You're winning SEO. The one thing, so I mean, obviously I would mention the personal search results that I mentioned from the last question. You would definitely want to check Search Console and ensure that you really are ranking for all those terms. You'd also maybe find some other terms that you're ranking for that you may not have thought of in there. And then the other two things I would do is make sure that the keywords that you think are valuable to your business are the keywords that people are actually using to search. And we've run into many instances where we speak with a client and they think, okay, this is, if I were my customer, this is what I'd be searching for, but you are inside your business. You are not your customer. And we have often found when we go into other tools like Google's AdWords Keyword Planner or Google Trends, that we find a lot of related keyword queries or rising search terms that the business owner hadn't even thought of that they aren't ranking for. And then the strategy comes down to getting to rank for those.
Okay. Next question. How important to SEO is having a mobile-friendly site?
Oh, it's absolutely critical. It's 2016. Officially this year, more searches occurred on mobile than occurred on desktop, and Google has started heavily penalizing websites in mobile search that do not have mobile-friendly sites. So if you do not have a site that ranks as mobile-friendly, right now is the time to get one. And this is something that you can check. There is a mobile-friendly checker tool that Google provides that you can just go and plug in your website URL, and it will tell you whether or not it regards the site as mobile-friendly and specifically why.
Okay. Next question. Google makes changes all the time. How can I be sure that any SEO work won't be rendered obsolete by an update?
Yeah, that is a great question. Google does make sweeping changes to its algorithms several times a year, and the that's kind of where we come back to having great content, because no matter what we do, it's very unlikely that any change Google makes tomorrow is going to render totally useless the efforts that you've put into having a well-designed website that's easy to navigate, or one that loads quickly or performs quickly well on mobile, or that has really awesome content that answers questions that people are looking for. None of those things are ever going to go out of style in SEO, and that's why, you know, when we talk about SEO, we focus more on the experience for the user and how that really complements how you're going to show up in search, rather than chasing the really technical tricks that might make you show up number one day and not rank at all the next day. I mean, when Google makes these changes, they're typically trying to weed out the people that are trying to game the system, and you're never ever going to be considered to be gaming the system if your goal is to create and get out great content that people are looking for.
Here's one. How long a process is SEO, and when will I start seeing results?
Yeah, that's the question we get a lot. So SEO is definitely a marathon, not a sprint. And when we say that, we mean that typically when we start working on SEO, we tend to see the results within a 6 to 12 month window. That may seem like a long time, but the good news is that these results often have a long tail of value. So we have often seen pieces of content or blog articles and such that we've optimized for SEO put up on the client's site, and if it's well written and informative enough, if it's updated frequently enough, one piece of content might be serving a client a significant chunk of organic traffic for 2 years or more. So it's really a cumulative effort, and it's definitely a long haul.
So I've got two questions that are sort of similar but different. I'll ask this one first. So how do I claim my Google My Business page that you spoke of earlier?
Well, if it hasn't ever been claimed before, that is should be an easy, straightforward one. Is you need to have a Google account. If you already log into Gmail or YouTube or Blogger or any other Google owns property, you already have one. Usually it's associated with an email address that's something@gmail.com. If you don't have a Google account already, they're free to set up. You just go to google.com and they'll walk you through the process. And once you're signed into your Google account, you can just do a search for Google My Business. The page will come up. Go there, click the big Get on Google button, and it'll ask you to search for your business. You'll select your business or put in this information if Google doesn't already have it. Then you'll say to claim this business. And after you claim it, you'll need to verify it, and there's a couple of ways you can do this. The most common method is by having Google snail mail you a postcard that has a pin on it that you wait 2 to 3 weeks in the mail for, and sometimes the card doesn't come and you have to call them and get them to send it again, and then you plug in that number and your business is verified. Or you can work with a trusted verifier like us, and we can set you up and get you verified in Google in about 5 minutes. So yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I've got time for one more, and I think this is a great one to end on. What are some simple things I can do on my own to improve SEO? And that's why I said that was sort of similar to the last one. I don't know if that ties into Google My Business or if that's something different.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. So yeah, the thing I recommend for everybody with a physical business location is to make sure that their Google My Business entry is accurate and verified. And if just some stuff for your website, I mean, set aside a few minutes a day, and if you're the person who manages your website, familiarize yourself with how it's laid out, look at the pages. If you can edit the title tags or the meta description tags on your pages, take a look at them and see if they accurately describe what's on that page. What you're looking for in title tag optimization is you don't want a bunch of duplicates, so you don't want every page on your website to be titled the same thing. You want them to be different. They should be roughly, definitely under 70 characters in length, otherwise they get truncated in search results, and they should accurately describe the page and contain the keywords that you want people to find in there. Same thing for meta description tags. These should be under 150 characters in length and give a concise description of what people can find on the page. And if you do this and accurately add title and alt tags to the images on your websites, you're going to be miles ahead of most of the other small businesses that are out there doing DIY websites.
Okay, great. Thank you, Zach, so much, and thank you, everyone. One thing that I will mention with our clients, we do SEO audits all the time and really go through a lot of these things that Zach spoke of. So if it's something that you had questions about, or kind of wanted to see, learn what that process is and how that may be able to help you. Here's our contact information. You can give us a call or just shoot us an email to info@LunarLogic. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time. Zach, thank you so much. That was very helpful.
Thanks, James. My pleasure.
Okay, and thanks, everyone. We will talk to you again next time.